About this week's Parsha first, then talk about Passover in the second half of the class. This week's Parsha is Shmeni, and it talks about one of the most important commandments of the Torah, which is keeping kosher. Because the most basic instinct and necessity of every human being is to eat, as we just saw right now. And we have to keep kosher. I mean, the Torah has many fundamentals, but if a Jewish family doesn't have like a four-legged, we have to imagine Judaism as a four-legged table. Any household that doesn't have these four essentials in it is not going to stay Jewish, God forbid. One of them is kosher, one of them is Shabbat, one of them is sending your children to Jewish school, Torah education, and the last one is family purity nidah. Now, why keep kosher? The answer today we want to deal with on a Kabbalistic level. What was the first sin that mankind did and the first test of all time? God put us in the Garden of Eden, and he actually gave us a very interesting commandment. He said, go eat every tree, right? I would presume there was probably thousands of trees there. Any tree that you would find in the Amazon or Australia or anywhere in the world was probably, wouldn't you presume, in the Garden of Eden? So there was literally every type of fruit there, but one tree God said, don't eat from. Now what happened, unfortunately? Did they pass the test? No. So we know that just like Einstein says, in the regular world, for every action there's a reaction. There was a spiritual nuclear disaster when Adam and Eve committed the first sin, which the Tanya talks about, the Kabbalah talks about. What happened was, imagine the most valuable crystal in the world shattering into trillions and trillions of pieces. And Mashiach can only come when all those pieces come back together. Now, one of the main ways that the world was infested with darkness and evil was in all the food, right? Because the sin was done with food, right? They shouldn't have eaten from that tree of knowledge, and they did. So therefore, Kabbalistically, the Or HaChaim talks about it, the Arizal, the Zohar, it's one of the fundamental premises of Kabbalah that basically darkness and dangerous stuff entered into all the food that we eat. So now, when we make a blessing and when we keep kosher, what are we doing? We're doing tikkun. Tikkun means that the first set of human beings, right? Adam and Chava, they committed this sin. That's why it's so fascinating that this idea of kosher is not some like extra credit thing. That's why it's such an important thing in Judaism. The whole beginning and end of the whole reason why we're still not in the Garden of Eden is what? Because we did the Garden of Eating instead of the Garden of Eden. So by us keeping kosher and making blessings and eating for the sake of heaven, this is going to cause us to bring Mashiach back. And I just wanted to say, the Zohar also says a fundamental thing. That we know Daniel was thrown into the lion's den. There were many lions in there. Now, a miracle happened and he was not devoured. The Zohar says why. He says because when Adam and Eve were first created, right, the Garden of Eden was full of all the animals. They wouldn't damage Adam and Eve. Why? Because everybody knew that Adam and Eve is godly, right? He's like angelic. But when we sinned, we became like an animal. So what kosher is that we're showing we're not an animal. Animal would eat anything you give it, right? A human being is somebody that has to use his knowledge. That's why I hate to tell you this, even if you eat unhealthy stuff, in a way it's unkosher. Because you should be eating so you have enough power to study Torah and serve God. When you're eating for selfish, and you eat too much for selfish reasons, that's why King Solomon says that the stomach of evil people is always bursting. So, Sadik ochel lesova nafsho, it says a righteous person just eats as much as he needs. The Rambam has a whole chapter, how healthy, all the sicknesses come from not having a good diet. So what I'm trying to tell you is that The Zohar says that Daniel was not devoured by the lions. You know why? Because he kept kosher. Because Every time you keep kosher and you make a blessing on your food, what happens? You elevate yourself to Selam Elokim, the image of God. Therefore, the lions came and kissed Daniel because they realized this is the messenger of God. This is somebody, he's not part of the animal kingdom. So may Hashem help us to keep kosher. And we should know the worst sin that stops you from understanding Torah and wanting to do good, positive deeds of God's commandments is unkosher. It's called Timtum Halev, which means, just like if you want to be in the Olympics and you want to do amazing, amazing workouts, you need to have a diet full of protein or else your body's going to be too weak. You need a certain diet, athlete. A Jew needs kosher. If he does not eat kosher, he will definitely be unsuccessful in getting the light of the Shekhinah and wanting to become holy. Because ultimately, we are a nation of holiness. And if we eat dirty food, we will never be able to become holy. And the whole reason we were created is to know God, is to study Torah, to learning God. If you don't keep kosher, it's like a blockage. It's like, when you go into the rain and there's certain anti-rain stuff, it just bounces off. You're not able to absorb the Torah. So may Hashem help us to keep kosher. Kosher is a backbone of Judaism. And in that way, we get closer to God. Amen.
Amen.